Now that 5.3 has been out for around a month, I've had time to play the patch and see what I like and what I don't like about it. And today I'm going to be talking about my first impressions of it. Hey guys, what's up? It's Umbruhh here, and today I'm going to be talking about my 1 month impressions of Final Fantasy XIV's patch 5.3, Reflection in Crystal. Now, before we start, I would like to give you all a warning that this video will contain spoilers and will not be talking about the Bojin Southern Front, as that content hasn't been released yet and won't be in the game till 5.35 around, I'd like to say maybe late September, early October. But without further ado, let's start with the video, and we are going to start the patch impressions with the new 24-man raid, the Puppets Bunker, as a part of the Nier Automata Alliance raid series, Yorha Dark Apocalypse. Now, if you haven't been able to tell from how much I endlessly praise Nier Automata in a lot of my videos, I really like the Nier series, and I really like the 24-man raids as well, although the copied factory was alright. Like, it was a bit tedious at times. Like, it definitely kind of got on my nerves after a while. Just, I don't know. It didn't really keep my interest, but I really enjoyed the Puppets Bunker, and I would dare say that it's among one of my new favorites. Although, I did say that about Copied Factory, but this time I mean it. Now, the intro quest for doing Puppets Bunker was really good, especially with the twist that 2P and the androids in white are evil. And 9S was good all along, and the 2B that we took from the Copied Factory earlier is helping us now. Now, the raid itself was also really enjoyable, and all the bosses had really interesting mechanics, better than the basically rusting robots with communist names that we fought in the previous one. These ones had better designs and a lot more enjoyable mechanics, I guess. And it was really cool to explore the bunker from Nier Automata itself, because it actually looked a lot like the bunker. It was the bunker, basically. Although, we also explored the factory from the Nier game, but this one felt more interesting to experience. And probably one of my favorite parts of the new raid is actually one of the trash pulls, where you have to traverse through one of the hallways in the bunker while avoiding laser AoEs from one of the mechs as you move forward. This part of the raid was definitely unique because most trash pulls in any instance we see just involve us encountering a group of enemies, defeat them, and then move on to the next group of enemies in the next room. And the final boss of the raid was also a fun fight with also fun mechanics that trick you into making the wrong move if you're not careful. And I think it's also fair to note how creepy and disturbing the new boss was as well. Because basically the final boss was a giant 2P that was made from the corpses of skinned androids. Basically, it's what it looks like what it would happen if you left your 2B doll in the cum jar for too long. And it's also interesting to note that the androids in white and 2P were created from the machines, kind of similar to how Adam and Eve from Nier Automata were created, so it'll be interesting to see what they'll do with that next. Now, overall, I think the raid is a really interesting and really fun raid. Definitely one of my favorites that they've added to the game yet, and I'm already speculating on what the final raid in the series will be. Personally, I think it's going to be the tower from Automata. And now we are talking about the Sorrows of Werelit's questline. Back to our favorite questline where we get to murder all of Gaius's kids. Now, they didn't add a new trial for this questline. They saved the new trial for every patch for the MSQ. They did offer us a rather unique type of solo instance where we get to fight the Sapphire weapon, whereas in previous third patches, we did something else. Like in 3.3 in the Warring Triad quests, it was just an instance where we went through Azizla and fought some Garleans. In the Four Lord quests in 4.3, it's just Swallow's Compass. But in 5.3, for this trial series, you get kind of like a solo trial-like instance where you basically pilot a Gundam mech and battle the Sapphire weapon. I, for one, am really hoping we get more of types of these instances in the game where you get to play as non-playable types of characters. Like, similarly to the quests, how we play as other characters, where you play as different jobs that you're not currently playing, like maybe that one instance in 5.36, or no, it was 4.56, we fought as Hien, who's a samurai, and in Shadowbringers we fought as Thancred, who's a gunbreaker. I'm kind of hoping for more, like maybe, for example, we play as a mech, or a dragon, or even a dragon mech. Okay, maybe not that, because they haven't run out of ideas just yet. And another area they've added this patch that I really like as a part of the new trial series is the new area called Turncliffe, which is kind of a smaller area similarly to how Gangos was in 5.25, but it's a really beautiful area with equally beautiful music. And the area does give a good job at giving a very kind of somber and eerie-like atmosphere, with with the fact that most of the town seems somewhat empty and the people there in the town seem kind of nervous or uncertain if you talk to them, because they were just liberated by the Alamegan resistance, and so they're not sure what's going on. And like I mentioned, my one complaint is that this area is a little bit small, although not as small as how Gangos was in the Resistance weapon quests. But I can really appreciate how detailed it is for such a small zone. And the storyline for this quest also explains how Gaius survived his encounter back in A Realm Reborn and met with his team of Ascian hunters, and we're also introduced to the main antagonist of the Sorrow of Werlit, who is the new legatus of the 7th Imperial Legion named Valens, and he's probably one of the creepiest characters we've seen yet in Final Fantasy XIV. I mean, if he's forcing kids to watch him do push-ups without a shirt on, and giving some weird exposition about milk, and punishing his subordinates by sending them to his correction chamber, not to mention whatever the hell he was gonna do with that Aura girl, if that doesn't give you messed up vibes, I don't know what will. I'm just wondering, from what we've seen right now, if we're gonna have to infiltrate his palace and steal his heart. Because, you know, no similarities at all. And next, I would like to talk about the new dungeon for this patch, the Hero's Gauntlet. Now, this dungeon is straight up fire, and no, I'm not talking about Amarot. I mean, this dungeon is really cool. Basically, all of the enemies that you fight in this dungeon, I think all of the enemies that you fight are spectral versions of various jobs found in Final Fantasy XIV. And the bosses are spectral versions of older jobs in the previous Final Fantasy games, like Spectral Thief, Spectral Necromancer, that basically looks like a scrapped Guilty Gear character, and Spectral Berserker. And this is a lot better than just fighting random creatures that you come across in the world, as you're fighting against other warriors of light, albeit in Spectre form. And the fact that this dungeon takes place across 3 different zones is pretty awesome as well. I mean, 4 if you count the dungeon being unlocked in Yulmore. And one detail I love about this dungeon is all the familiar NPCs that you come across, such as like the people we've met in Amarang and Ilmag and Lakeland, and even the job quest NPCs help us out in Lakeland, so like Granson, Lurik, Geot, and Carrig. Like, all of those people that we met in the role quest, they come and help us out at the end. And if you look closely and at the right time, you can even find a spectral version of Hildebrand. Overall, I think it's fair to say that I won't get tired of doing this dungeon for Expert Roulette for the next 6 months. And now, we are at the final thing I want to talk about, the MSQ and the new trial. Now, this is the part you've all been waiting for, the conclusion to the Shadowbringers storyline, and I fucking love this patch's storyline, like, even more so than 3.3's. I love how this patch did such a good job at bringing a very satisfying conclusion to the story in Norvrance, while tying up almost all loose ends. I mean, except for the Eden storyline, but that'll be taken care of in 4.4. And one of the things that surprised me the most is what they did with Elidibus. Like, they managed to turn this boring and enigmatic character whose goals we knew nothing about into a very compelling villain, similarly to how Emmett Selk was, although personally I prefer Emmett Selk. But we learned about who Elidibus is, what his life was before the Sundering, and what drives him as the heart of Zodiark. And we even get to fight him after he turns into the Warrior of Light from Final Fantasy I, which was really cool, and there's a lot of interesting references in the fight as well. So it was really cool, although I can't say the same about wiping 2 times during the first time I tried to do this trial, because your party doesn't know what to do for the QTE phase, but I think the mechanics in the fight made it a really interesting and fun trial, and I'm currently learning how to do the extreme fight at the time of recording this video. And finally, not only do the Scions get to keep their Shadowbringers gear, but we also got our boy back! Grahatia back in the source, and he becomes a Scion, which it made me so giddy while watching the cutscene for the first time. And one thing that's awesome too is that once you finish all the quests, you get Grahatia as a permanent trust member after completing the 5.3 MSQ, and you can use him as an all-rounder just like you could when he was the Crystal Exarch. So Black Mage, White Mage, and Paladin, you got it. So now I can finally replace Thancred. And it makes sense that they would add him as a permanent member, since he's a Scion now, and you probably won't be able to use Reen for any of the Trust Dungeons story-wise when you first do them, when the new patched dungeons come out. Now to my overall thoughts. Furthermore, I have the utmost respect for the devs for making such an amazing game as this and bringing it to life, and how they were able to bring us such a great patch despite everything happening in the world and how it's affected everyone. I hope it goes without saying I'm really looking to where 5.4 takes us, and hopefully learn more about the next expansion along with all the new content that comes our way. Anyways, these are my current impressions of Final Fantasy 5.3. Comment down below, what did you guys think about the new patch, whether you enjoyed it, maybe some things you didn't enjoy, and I will see you guys later. Be sure to subscribe for more Final Fantasy 14 content, follow me on Twitter and Twitch, and I hope you all have a wonderful day. Umbruhh, out.